protecting our community is worth a shot. Vaccines can help protect you, your family, and our community. Stop by James Drugstore today.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and I am joined today by Fabio, our very own assessor, and I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. He is not Fabio, but he is growing his hair out for St. Jude, correct?
St. Jude, that's correct. I'm Jeff Taylor. I'm the assessor here in Livingston. Thank you so much for having me, and yes, I am growing it out for St. Jude. I've got to go through April. And so when I get to April, then we'll decide how short I'm going to cut it.
I would imagine that you'll be about done with it at that point.
It's getting there.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I know you and I did a podcast a couple of years ago, and when you had started it, and it grew very quickly to your shoulders, and then it just kind of evened out, right?
Yeah, it's tapered off really, but in the last 3 months, it's just hasn't hardly grown at all. So we're going to check it again in November and see if this is still viable. I know right now it's about 9.5 inches. I got to get to 12. But if it stops growing and it's not going to go any further, then we'll make a decision at that point. But I'm still raising money and people are giving.
Well, there you go. And I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's a good cause. But today we're here to talk about Ida, basically. And there's a lot of layers underneath that. But I really want to start off with just a real simple from you, 2 minutes. This is what's going on. We'll dive into the details later. I just want people to know right off the bat, what can they do if they have home or business damage from Ida through your office? Who should they call? What's the process there?
Look, come into the office, bring some documentation. We're going to require documentation. We're out and about every day trying to check damage. But as you can tell, people that are working on their homes after a storm and everything, the last people they want to see is the assessor's office. I don't blame them, because they're trying to make sure everything is cleaned up, but we still have a job to do and to make sure that people get the benefits that they're going to need. So if you have damage, take some pictures of it, bring it in, bring your insurance papers in, bring any assistance that you receive from FEMA for damage to your house. And we're not talking about food and clothing and everything. We're talking about if you received something from FEMA that helped you with the damage on your house, bring that in. And also bring in what your deductible is, because what we're going to try to do, McHugh, is we're trying to make your home back to whole. And that is going to include FEMA, your insurance, and the whole 9 yards. So that's what you're going to need to do. Call our office, talk to me or one of my deputies, and we will guide you through the process. We're going to get you as close to whole as we possibly can.
Now, of course, your office is in front of the courthouse in the town of Livingston. So you can find it there. Of course, obviously you can go online, type in Livingston Parish Assessor into Google. You can find it there. What's your phone number?
My phone number at the office is 225-686-7278. We've never closed down during COVID. During all this time, we were open. We have people there answering the phones. So please call us. We want to help. We want to make sure that your assessment is fair. Taxes are another thing. We've been saying this for years and years. What our job is to make sure that we assess your property and get a fair market value of your property. So that's what we're going to do.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of it a little bit. It's been interesting, I guess that's one way to put it, over the last few years, starting with the flood, moving forward. There have been adjusted flood assessments, adjusted COVID assessments, now adjusted Ida assessments. First, I kind of want to start off with, now that we're into, people know where to call if they need to go ahead and go. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about the board of review, this is when you visit the parish council, you let them know this is the assessed value of property and that sort of thing. And of course, this year, an increase of $20 million to $503 million, but the books were closed right before Ida occurred.
Right.
So that's going to change. About what time do you think y'all will have an idea? I mean, obviously people are going to be coming in with documentation and that sort of thing, but about how long does that process usually take to adjust numbers like that?
Well, what we're going to do is the tax bills and everything will go out on time. And we will keep our time. We've worked hard to make sure that limit, doing a lot of overtime, making sure that our people are ready. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do change orders. McHugh. And what that means is that you come in, you bring your tax bill, and you can come in before if you want to, and go ahead and get it out of the way, and we'll take care of it. Or you can just come in when you get your tax bill, or not come in, but call. Be better if you call. We're going to be able to assist more people if you do that. If you give us a call, Send us some pictures. Bring all those documents that we said a little bit earlier. Bring those in, and then we're going to do a change order for your assessment to make sure you're made whole.
So obviously that's the process you discussed at the beginning. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that it's something that you mentioned, and it's a balancing act that your office has to play. There have been several years now where, you said you were the only office, at least in Louisiana, offering COVID assessments, especially for businesses. But it's been interesting because you have a lot of taxable districts in Livingston Parish. The numbers are still going up, and yet you're having these discounts, so you kind of have to balance the two. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, that process really causes a lot of sleepless nights because you really have to balance it to where the constituents get the breaks that they need while the districts are still able to function. It's just easy. Everybody tells me, they say, won't you just cut it by 50, 60, 70%? Well, we like the fact that our kids go to school. We like the fact that we've got a library. We like the fact that our fire departments respond to us. We like the fact that when we call, the sheriff's office is able to show up, our drainage. So all of those things are taken into account. Now, you got to realize that up until 2016, we had made adjustments before for a few hurricanes, but then all of a sudden 16 hit in the flood. Our books were already closed. So the flood hit that next day, actually. Well, that Sunday it actually hit. We were closed on Thursday, our books closed. And so all of a sudden we had to come up with a figure. We knew that we could not do what some of the other parishes were doing. We didn't have the tax base to do it. So I spread it out over 4 years. I gave a 20%, a 25, a 20, and a 20. So you got the same reduction as other parishes got. It just took us a little bit longer because of our tax base. Well, now that flood discount is supposed to be coming off. But what happened? There's people that didn't have flood insurance, so they're still working on their homes. So we're having to now adjust it to make sure that they still have the flood discount, the ones that have to have it. Then comes COVID, and we're saying the people can't work. The businesses are shut down. They need an adjustment on that. So I give a COVID reduction. Well, did we get over COVID? Obviously not. They're still fighting with it over at the legislature. Trying to come up with a way to do certain things. So as of January the 1st of 2021, COVID was still running rampant. It still is. So I left the COVID reduction on. Then Ida comes. So some people's got a flood, a COVID, and now their houses are tore up with Ida. Well, I'm not going to give both the flood and Ida reductions because if you're already getting a 20%, I'm not going to do the Ida. Okay, so we've got to adjust it because I've got districts that are calling me saying, I can't even fix my trucks. Fire departments that are calling me. They've got leaks in their tankers that have rusted through. And because of 5, 6 years now of reductions in their budget that they're supposed to be receiving, they're running into problems. That also affects their ratings. When they come in, if they don't have enough, if their equipment is not up to par, they lose their rating. So what happens then if you lose your rating? Your insurance rates go up.
Sure.
So it's a balancing act to make sure that everybody gets to a certain point.
Sure.
And that's all we can do. And we're doing that. And I think we've done a really good job over the last 4 or 5 years making sure that happens.
And there has to be some difficulty too, because you have parish-wide millages, the parish, the sheriff, the school board, the library. But like you said, a lot of people say, well, there's plenty of growth. There's 20 million in growth of taxable value on the books. Well, not all that is in the same place. Some of those rural fire districts may be the ones making the complaint because no one knew's moving into their area, or not enough.
Not enough
to cover.
Look, I'm talking to the fire chief out in Springfield, in North Albany, these districts. Their budgets are so small already that when you start taking things off, they still have to pay insurance. They still have to have trucks that run. They still have to do training. They have to do all the things. Maybe not on the larger scale, but they're still having to do it. So when they're telling me, come out here, look at our books, we will show them to you. We're not hiding anything. So often we hear over and over and over, what do we hear? Good old boy network, good old boy network, good old boy network. It's not a good old boy network. It is a bunch of people that are trying to do the very best they can. And I watch these people work every single day and just trying to make ends meet for their departments. I see it. We've got good people working for Livingston Parish. We should be proud.
So let's talk about that for a second. You know, when you hear the term good old boy and all that, and yet when you did the flood discount, when you did the COVID discount, and now with the IDA discount, your office is requiring specific documentation. You already talked about bringing in both your insurance policy and pictures of your damage and things of that nature. So let's talk. We have talked previously. I recommend you go to our podcast page and search for them. We talked about the flood discounts. We talked about the COVID discounts. Let's talk about specifics of the process of an IDA discount. You've already said they need to bring in their homeowner's insurance policy and they need to bring in pictures of the damage to their house. How are you going to work with individuals to make sure that they become whole again? Because that's what you're looking to do, is resecure that property value.
Well, you've got a home. Let's just say, I'm going to use the numbers and make it simple. You got a $100,000 home, okay? But you have insurance that covers all of these damages and everything. Well, if the insurance is going to fix your home, then you are going to be basically whole once that insurance is taking effect and put it on your house. So what we're going to look at is, what are you out? How much are you going to be out? Well, you got a deductible and you got time out of your home. So we're going to make adjustments on that. Now, if you choose not to fix your home with the insurance, then obviously next year we're going to have to look at the value of that home, because the values have already been created for this year. Right. 2021, the books closed. Actually, the storm come through on the Sunday night. Our book, the last day of books, open books, was that Monday. We were at the office that Monday. We had to drive through the storm to get to the office because the law said we had to have the books open. So our values are already established for this year. So at this point now, how do we go about making sure that people are whole? Insurance, any FEMA payments, we put all that together. We put it against your damage. And then we try to work with you on your deductible, because that deductible is going to be part of your cost. That is a cost. So whatever your percentage is of that deductible of your house, we're going to look at lowering the assessment by that percentage. Some people that's going to be a lot. Some people it's not going to be a lot. But if you have insurance, that's the process. If you don't have insurance, then we're going to have to work at it on an individual basis.
Sure.
So our job is to make sure that we have a fair and equitable assessment. And in doing that, we got to take everything into account. Insurance is one of them.
Gotcha. So, you know, there is a process that homeowners are going to have to go through for this. Y'all aren't just going to start handing out discounts. No. So, again, I want to remind folks that you need to bring pictures of your damage. And if you have a homeowner's insurance policy, you need to bring that as well. There's a process to be worked through at the assessor's office, which, again, is in front of the courthouse in the town of Livingston. Now, I do want to talk to you briefly about the consistent increase in property value here in Livingston Parish. It has been, even after the flood, it has been consistent, pretty rampant. But we do have confusion, and we see it a lot on Facebook when people read the Board of Review story. A lot of people don't understand, and you don't want to throw it in their face. They may not own the property they live in. They may be renters, but a lot of people don't understand what homestead exemption is. So I want to just real quick throw out a number. Not throw out a number. Read a number. I'm not. This is not arbitrary. Total assessed value for the parish is $893 million, and yet the taxable value is $503. So it's important for people to understand homestead exemption. And I know that you were part of the Assessors Association here or probably still are. I know how that goes. You're a past president, right?
Yes.
So they keep you around.
Yes.
So, when you're talking about the difference between the two, from the mouth of an assessor, how do you explain that to people?
Well, the homestead exemption was something that was put in law a long, long time ago. And we all call it now the sacred cow, because there's nothing going to happen with the homestead exemption. You have legislators every year that go in, and some of them want to raise it, some of them want to lower it. And they do that because they play to their base. We're going to raise it up here. You got to be careful with the homestead exemption, because if you raise that homestead exemption, that just means you take more people out of the pool. Right. And the people that are then paying it have to pay more. So you got to be careful with that. If you lower it, then you're going to hurt the people that need it the most. But the homestead exemption is $75,000 off the value of your home if you own the home.
Right.
Okay, the law says you have to own it and occupy it. So it's not that you can own it and then rent it out. You have to own it and occupy it. It does not say anything about a percentage. It doesn't say you got to have 100% ownership and 100% occupying it. It just says owned and occupied. So if you own it with a group of people and you're living in it, you own it and occupy it, you get $75,000. You do not prorate it. For the longest time, the legislature wanted to prorate it. That's not what the law says. The law says if you own it and occupy it, you get a $75,000 homestead. We give that. And so from there, we try to make sure that we are fair. There's a lot of people that have been very creative over the years, and they have learned that if you use different names, if you use different post office boxes and everything like that, that you can get 2, 3, 4 homestead exemptions. Well, we hired a company a couple of years ago. It was gnashing of teeth because everybody's like, well, what are you doing? All of a sudden, I owe taxes on it. You can't have 4 homesteads. You can have 1. You can have 1 in this country. You can't have 1 in California and 1 in Louisiana. You have to choose where you want it. So we hired a company to come in named Assessor. And so that company came in and they found over 1,200 people that were willing to tell us that they only had that 1 homestead when we was able to look at it and see that there was more. We immediately started changing it out. And now that we verify them now. When people come in, we verify you. People get mad. They throw a fit because we have found it. Some people don't understand it, but we explain it to them. But you can only have 1 homestead exemption. Sure. You can't get it in 2 different deals. So this company goes out and verifies through driver's license, through addresses, everything that's available to us, we do it. And we've been able to clean up our rolls a whole lot. 20 years ago, when I came into office, it was, like you said a few minutes ago, people just giving out, here's assessment. There was no continuity at all. It took us 15 years to get the book straight. That's how bad it was. But once we got it all going, and we just kept making steps and strides every day, then we got a mapping system, we got a new computer system, we got all these things going, and the books have been cleaned up. So when people come in and say, oh, you're just giving your discounts to your friends and everything, get that. Look, that's not the way it works. If you come to work for me, we'll assess your property. If you fill out an application for me, we go and assess your property before we even make a decision on you, to make sure that everything is right. I find that a lot of times people will come in and apply for a job, and as soon as I tell them we're going to need to go out and assess your property, we're going to need to go look at your property of your parents, your siblings, you, and everything. Oh, I'm good. I don't want a job. What did you think I'm going to do at that point? I'm going to that house.
Right.
Why? Why am I going to that house?
Because you sound guilty.
Because you sound guilty. And I don't want to ever be accused of not doing it right. Now, people are going to accuse me of it, but I don't want to be rightly accused of not doing it right. Sure. You're going to accuse me of everything that ever happens in this parish. Good old boy network, he's giving it to his friends, he's doing all this stuff. No, you come to work for me, you come in my office, you know that we're going to treat people fairly, and that's the way we're going to do it. But the homestead exemption is $75,000, and you get it. A lot of states don't have it. We give it in Louisiana.
Right. So I wanted to bring that up because between, you go and explain these numbers to the parish council, and between that and discussing it with the taxable entities and then having to represent homeowners or property owners, I guess you can say, when you're giving these discounts, we discussed it earlier, but every step you take in this process, there's a new part you have to balance on these books. And it is interesting. Of course, you mentioned it at $75,000 off of the first value of your home that you occupy. So when you're talking about that, it's important to, I guess what I'm bringing it around to is there are places with growth in Livingston Parish and there are places without. And I would imagine that from your perspective, especially as you're working through these discounts, you have to take a lot of that into account as best you can, because as you discussed, you have more rural fire departments or police departments or even municipalities that are struggling because they don't see the growth that, say, the western part of the parish does. When you're talking about a $20 million increase from 2020 to 2021 in terms of actual taxable value on the books, I would imagine most of that's on the western side of the parish.
Well, of course it is. It's from Walker, Dental Springs, Watson. Those areas is where a lot of the growth is. Livingston is getting a lot of growth right now. But that's where it's coming from. And so when we say 20 million, people start saying, well, what are they doing with all the money? Go look at their books. Look, we have a system here in our country to where we can hold our elected officials accountable. Ask for their budgets. See them. See what they're doing with the money. And you're going to find that a lot of these smaller districts and everything, there is no real increase. We're putting everything we can on the books for them, but there's no real increase because the values have either gone down, because you do have that. In some areas, values actually decrease because people are wanting to move to other areas. But when you do that, that affects each one of the districts. And so I have to do a balancing act. And I said a little while ago, a lot of sleepless nights. A lot of people say I don't sleep anyway. But there's a lot of times that I go to bed at night and I'm staring straight at the ceiling because I'm trying to decide what are we going to do with that district that can't afford now to put gas in their truck, or they can't put insurance on their vehicle. Well, if you can't drive that truck, then your fire rating just goes to as high as it can go.
Right.
Well, what has that done to you? If you go from a 5 to a 9, I mean, you may increase your insurance by $1,200 a year. Then it gets to where people can't afford it. And so homes are burning and people are without insurance. So we have to do a huge balancing act.
Sure.
And I've got a good staff that surrounds me. I'm at the legislature almost every day. Our legislators, Mr. Mack, Mr. Pope, Mr. Mincy, Shake Snyder, Valerie Hodges, Bodie White, all of them, they see me a lot. And they know when I'm coming asking for, this is the law that we need to look at. We need to change this. We need to make it to where we can do this right here because it's going to help the homeowners, or it's going to help a business. Or instead of having to keep our millages high every year and roll it back every 4 years, no, we don't have to do that. Let's take that out. So if they can give back to the people, they can, because we were in a very situation to where it was a punishing deal. If you didn't roll your millage back to the maximum every 4 years, you would lose your maximum. Well, nobody was willing to do that because they never knew when the next storm was coming.
Sure.
So this year we went in legislation, and the assessor from Lafourche, Wendy Thibodeau, actually led the effort, and she wanted to get it to where you don't ever have to lower your millages. I mean, if you want to lower them, you don't have to go back to the maximum. But if you ever do need to go back, you can, no matter if it's 20 years. That passed. Only one representative voted against it. So that tells you how much it was needed a long time ago, but just nobody would ever do it.
Right.
We decided this year as a group, and we said, let's do this. You take the lead on it, and she did. And we got it passed. So the districts now can start to give a little bit of money back without fear that they're going to lose down the road.
Well, and that's interesting. I'm glad you said that, because it's sort of the last point I want to bring up, because, you know, we had a chance today to talk more about a lot of the things that go into your property tax rate, and a lot of the things that go into how these districts, you know, collect money. As you said, rolling back, a lot of districts were looking at new assessments, and because of the, I guess you can say, forward-facing view of it, would roll it back so that they would, you know, claim the same amount of money that they had been. The problem is that because they were able to roll it back, because there were more homeowners in the area or property owners, you have more people to serve, but you're only collecting the amount of money that served the lower population from the year before, or from 4 years before. So obviously you were leading a push against that that idea that we just have to keep rolling back. What is your opinion on? And I'm asking you for your opinion before we wrap it up here. But what's your opinion on the whole idea of rolling back? Obviously, you were against it.
Well, this is my stance on it. I have said this for years. I would love to have a meeting in the middle part of the parish when it comes time for all the districts to meet. Don't have 40-something district meetings. People can't get to them. I have asked that we get together as a group. I'll start it off. I'm Jeff Taylor. I'm your assessor. This is the money that I'm supposed to be taking in. This is the money I need for my budget. My millage last year was this. This year I can lower my millage to this. And so I'm going to save the parish this much money. Do it in public. Do it to where everybody can come, and you can have the public. What we don't have is the districts that want to look out there and see 300 or 400 people sitting in the stands at a gym, and they have to answer right then. So you have a meeting, and 2 weeks later you come back and you vote on what you're going to do, but you do it in front of the people. Look, there's nobody that shows up at my district meetings. I sit there and wait for them. Nobody comes in. 15 minutes later, we call the meeting. No one ever shows up at a district meeting. But yet when the tax bills go up, they complain about the taxes. You come to the wrong person. You come to the assessor. The The assessor only has one district. There's 43 districts. If your taxes are too high, you need to talk to the districts. If your assessment's too high, you need to come talk to the assessor. That's how that works. Now, does that directly affect the taxes? Yeah, if your assessment's too high, you will pay more in taxes. But our job is to make sure that we give you the right assessment. There's people that all the time, McHugh, they'll complain, oh, I got the same house as the guy across the street and my taxes are $200 more higher. Well, it shows on his plan that he's got an extra bedroom. Oh, yeah, he's got an extra bedroom. Well, then you don't have the same house. We do it on square footage. Mm-hmm. We do it on value. We also do it from the outside of the house. We cannot go inside your house. So we do the drive-by and we look at it, we grade the house and everything from the outside, and then we look at sales to see how much these houses are coming up for. So if you got a difference of, if you got a house on for $150 a square foot and there's a difference of 200 square feet, they may look exactly like on the outside, but they got an extra room somewhere and it's an extra 200 square feet, that comes out to be an extra $30,000 on your assessment.
Right.
That makes a huge difference. So when people are saying, oh, he's just giving it this, that's not the way it works. We have put a tape measure on just about every structure in this parish. I think we're down to less than 150 or 200 structures in this parish that have not had a tape measure in the last 20 years of my people going out and tape measuring. There's no one in the state that does that. One of the things that they will tell you in this state, Jeff Taylor has the best data of anyone in the state because we made a point of it years ago to make sure, how am I going to know if I'm assessing you right if I don't even know what the square footage of your house is? There were so many people that was willing to tell us they had a 1,200 square foot house years and years ago when they wasn't checking them. And you go out there and you're checking, it's a 2,000 square foot house. That makes a huge difference in the money that comes into the district. Look, we have grown since I've been in office. We went from, I think it was 94,000, 95,000 people to 140-some thousand people now in 20 years. But our taxable values went from 101 million to 503 million. So we've increased 50% in people, but our tax rolls have increased 400%. That didn't just happen. That didn't happen because I'm giving it away. That happened because we had people that were dedicated and they were diligent about what they were doing and they wanted to do it honestly. So before you throw out accusations that it's not being done right, educate yourself, come in and watch the process, because I've found a lot of times that people that throw it out, I invite them in. Come, let me show you our process. And I come in, they go, oh, well, I didn't know it worked that way. Educate yourself.
Sure. So speaking on that, let's wrap it up with the process one more time. If you had damage from Ida, what do you need to do?
Call our office. We're going to ask you to, if you can, send the pictures and everything in, because the flow is going to be a lot better if you do it that way. If you don't, you're going to come out there and there's going to be people all in the lobby. They're going to be standing out there and you're going to wait 2, 3, 4 hours. If you send it, we'll have someone call you back, or you call, we get you to a deputy. We start taking care of that process right then. Bring in pictures, send in pictures, bring in your insurance papers, bring in your amount of deductible, and any assistance that you receive from FEMA. Not for clothing, not for food. We're talking about for damage. Anything you got for damage, come in, because our job is to make you whole from the day the storm come in to now. And that will, if you got insurance that helps make you whole, then we help you with your deductible. If you don't have insurance, we got to make you whole. We'll work on it from there. We'll do it on an individual basis.
And the phone number, one more time.
225-686-7278. And we have deputies on standby. We're ready to help you. We're ready to assist you. We'll be there. So give us a call.
All right. Introduce yourself, please, sir.
Okay. Again, I'm Jeff Taylor, Livingston Parish Assessor. Such an honor to be the Assessor of Livingston Parish. I love the job. I think we do a good job out at our office. And thank you for giving us the time to let people know what they need to do in storms and to just have an educational.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate you taking the time to come out here and talk to us. Again, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there listening or watching, whichever you chose to do. Please remember that the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. Please remember, if you do have Ida damage, call the assessor's office. Please try to get that taken care of. It is your money. And please remember to find these podcasts wherever you like to listen to your podcast. We release them to all platforms. And, of course, they are on Facebook as well. We do hope you have a great day, and we will see you next time.